Hello, everybody. This is Naturalist James Anderson from the Marion County Park District, and welcome to another episode of Natural Lessons with me, Naturalist James Anderson. When you hear the word relationships, what do you think of? You tend to think of relationships for humans, right? Relationships with a friend, with a family member, with a coworker, a significant other, and so on and so forth. Well, what about nature? Are there really relationships in nature? Yes, there is. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of relationships out there, but today's episode, we're mainly going to be focusing about symbiosis and all of those different kinds of relationships that are out there. There's about 4 different kinds, sometimes 5, depending on what textbooks that you're looking at. But we'll be looking through that. We'll be defining symbiosis and giving some examples that we can find either here in the state of Ohio or in Marion County. So I hope you enjoy this show, folks. So what is symbiosis? Well, symbiosis is an interaction between 2 different organisms living in close physical association with one another, typically to the advantage of both.
So our first symbiotic relationship we're going to talk about is competition. It is a symbiotic relationship in which organisms fight or compete for food, shelter, a mate, or other resources. So in nature, there's kind of 2 different types of competition. There's intraspecific competitions, which is among members of the same species. So like you're looking at right now, you got some vultures standing on a water tower. Then you have other organisms like wood ducks during the breeding season. They all kind of compete against other male wood ducks to claim their own pond so they can get multiple females. And then you have interspecific competition, which is competition between individuals of different species. So a great example of this is if you feed birds on your property. You probably get a lot of varieties such as finches and cardinals and blue jays and doves, and I just can go and so on and so forth. Well, they're obviously all trying to get all the food, or if you put a bird bath, or if you put a bird house, again, it's a form of competition.
So next we're going to talk about predation. So predation is a form of a symbiotic relationship between 2 organisms of unlike species in which one of them acts as the predator that captures and feeds on the other organism that serves as the prey. So of course we have our example of our wildlife that eat smaller wildlife, such as this red-tailed hawk was eating this frog. That would be a predation relationship. And predator-prey relationships are always fluctuating. When your prey numbers are high, over time your predator numbers are going to be high, and then once those prey numbers go low with their population, then the predator population numbers go low as well. So, you really don't think about it as a symbiotic relationship, but they do intertwine, are interconnected with one another. And, a lot of us don't really think about herbivore as being predators. No, they're not eating other animals, but they are eating plants. And kind of like we talked about just a moment ago about how the predators have a prey relationship. Our herbivores, they do have a tight relationship with the plants, and it's the same concept. When their food source is out there, when it's in large abundance, then herbivores. Your numbers can definitely increase just depending on the species. Deer is a really great example of that. And then if vegetation is not available, then of course the herbivore numbers can go down as well. Next we're going to talk about is mutualism. So the definition of mutualism is an ecological interaction between 2 or more species which each species benefit from each other. So a really great example of mutualistic relationship here in the state of Ohio is the spotted salamander and green algae. And you're probably wondering, how do those 2 organisms, how do they have that mutualistic relationship? Well, what's really interesting, when the spotted salamander is in the egg form, still in that little tadpole, hasn't hatched out of the egg. So the algae grows actually in the egg and infuses in the cells. And the idea is that as the spotted salamander larvae tadpole is excreting waste, it is producing nitrogen. And then the algae is producing oxygen to help with growth development. Now, scientists really aren't sure, if this should still be considered a mutualistic relationship, because if you do kind of think about it, as that algae, as it embeds itself into the cell and into that jelly case, it's basically cutting itself off of sunlight. And so they think that the algae is actually stressed out. And scientists really don't know what kind of relationship we should call this. Should it still be called a mutualistic? Should it be called something entirely different? So that's what's still pretty neat about this discovery. And for a long, long time, we thought that the algae grew outside of the egg, but then as science progressed on, again, we found out it grows basically kind of inside it. So again, really, really cool. And spotted salamanders are the only known vertebrate to have a symbiotic relationship with a plant. So that's pretty cool that we have that example here in the state of Ohio. You probably haven't thought about it, but pollinators have a mutualistic relationship with certain plants. They're nectar-bearing plants, because if you think about it, the flower is producing nectar for the pollinator, which that pollinator needs in order to live or to thrive throughout their life cycle. And then at the same time, as the pollinators are jumping from flower to flower, they're transferring that pollen, which then helps with reproduction for the flower. It helps with genetic diversity, and so that flower is able to produce its bearing fruit, nuts, seeds, whatever the case may be. So again, the flower is getting benefit from the pollinator, and the pollinator is getting the benefit from the flower. Next we're going to talk about is commensalism. Commensalism is a biological interaction in which members of one species gain benefit while the other species neither benefit or is nor harmed. A great example of this is a spider producing its web, whether it's on a tree or a other herbaceous plant. So if you think about it, once the spider makes this web, the web is not harming the plant. It's not really benefiting the plant as well, but the spider makes the web so he's able to catch his food. And our last symbiosis relationship we're going to be learning about is parasitism. Parasitism is when one organism, the parasite, either lives inside or outside of its host and causes harm on the other species. Our great examples are ticks, fleas, and internal parasites.
Well, guys, I hope you learned something new. I hope you learned about the definition of symbiosis and the different kinds of symbiosis relationships that are out there in the world, and also maybe in our own backyards. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Marion County Park District. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe to our other social media accounts, our Facebook and Instagram accounts as well. Well, guys, have fun, be safe, but most of all, go out and explore your Marion County parks. I'm Naturalist James Anderson, and I'll see you all next time on Natural Lessons with me, Naturalist James Anderson. Goodbye, everybody.